his ankle got stuck and he was unable to get it loose. If you guys remember, around that same time, we had a up the coast. As the hurricane was coming to the coast, of course, that happened down in Florida, but that happens and it goes all the way up to the East Coast when those. Unfortunately, what happened with my dad at the time that he was trying to get his ankle loose, the waves came on. Unfortunately, he was not able to keep his balance. He was thrown off the boat. If and you know, in the middle of a storm, if anybody knows a yacht, the anchor's on the front, the ladder for the boat was on the back. Unfortunately, he really was not prepared for what was upon him. Um, and we all know the results of that and what happened. And unfortunately, we did lose him that day. We were in communication with the Coast Guard. We were in communication with a lot of his friends and family, especially a lot of people that were in the boat community that really wanted to help us see what they could do to save him or at least find out and find out what the results were. For the 2 days, we did not know. We knew, but we didn't know. And that's what happened. After that, me and my little brother Ohaji, we took me and my brother Ohaji, and also my sister came out to help us as well. And my brother-in-law is to support us, which we really appreciated, and they still do to this day. Support us. My sister came from Memphis, my brother drove down from Raleigh to just help us out with whatever we needed. At the time, we didn't know what we needed. We had never done anything like this before, and it was still a shock to us. It's still a shock to this day. I still think my dad's gonna call me up and tell me it's a joke at some point in time. Man, I was just, but unfortunately, y'all know that's not how life goes. But we went down. We had to deal with the business at hand, which was taking care of him, taking care of his personal belongings, taking care of his general business, getting his affairs in order, taking care of his remains as well, which everything has been done. And right at this point, we really want to just put my dad to rest in peace. And we really appreciate everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Howard University and recognize a few people just all the time. Yannick has been an absolute superstar for us. She has come to us with things we didn't even know we needed. So I really want to tell her I really appreciate her from the bottom of my heart. There's a person I can ask for a better person to really help us with this at this time. Thank you very much. Please. And so after that, me and my brother, he had a boat here in the Baltimore Harbor. So after we got things worked out, we spent the weekend in Savannah, drove up to Baltimore, stopped in Virginia Beach to see one of my cousins, went on up to Baltimore the next day. Well, we came to see Jude. Jude, where you at? Went to Jude's house. Jude's one of his best friends. Jude and his wife took great care of us. We were able to go down to Baltimore, clean his boat, do things and things of that nature. Really, when I told my brother, I said, man, we're going to go on a trip together and we don't know what's going to happen. And we are still on that trip to this day. And I've had the joy of getting to meet a lot of people that are here today as a result of that. And some of the people that were close to my father that met him throughout his career, whether it be professionally, appreciative, or otherwise. And I know that he meant a lot to a lot of people here. He meant a lot to me and my brother and my family. He's still the man. And we are still trying to fill his shoes to this day. And we're going to do the best we can to make sure we do right by him and make him proud of us. Till I'll wait till it's my turn. So in the meantime, we have a nice program set up today for you. We have some great people that are going to be coming up to speak. We have some very prestigious people, especially people from this university and other walks of life, my father's life. Since the time that we have been able to get my dad's remains in his body and everything like that, a lot of people have called me. A lot of people communicate with me, and I've tried to be there and answer and get back with everybody that I possibly could get back to. If I did, I will apologize. But hopefully I was able to get back and talk back to everybody that was trying to reach and talk to my father that was concerned about him, trying to figure out a way they could help and offer their support. And I really want to tell everybody right now that we really appreciate it, what you offered, we appreciate it now, and I really appreciate everyone being here. So thank you very much. Since we are getting started a little late, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start opening up the mics to some people that we know that want to come up and speak some words that we have scheduled to speak with us today. And then later on, we are going to offer other people that want to share some kind words about that and anything else they'd like to share. We're going to open that up to you as well. The first person I would like to invite to the mic is Mr. Provost. Mr. Anthony Russo.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. And as has been, I've been introduced, I'm Tony Ruta, and I currently serve as the Provost and Chief Academic Officer here at Howard University. And first, I want to offer my deepest condolences to the family. I had the blessing to meet Ron. I'm trying to think, I've been at Howard for almost 30 years now, but I met him while I was serving as the dean of the pharmacy school, and he was director of patients and was really helpful to me. I had read someone had described him as a teacher, a friend, a mentor, and not only to journalists, but to really many people that he met. And I know that he meant a lot, not only me, but to other colleagues here at Howard. And so I wanted to just be here, both in my official capacity as the provost, but also personally, because once Ron left Howard, I didn't really keep in touch with him. And I was shocked when Dr. Lamb sent me an email that he had passed. And it's interesting how you may know certain parts of someone's life, but not really know a lot of other aspects of their life. And I had read, for example, that he had spent time in Iraq as a journalist, and he volunteered to go to Iraq during the war. And that's it's not something I would have done, but certainly it tells you something about him and how seriously he took his craft. Thank you. And how seriously he took, he had the same professionalism in his role here at Howard. And so I just wanted to again express my deepest condolences to the family. Know that God has us all in his hands, and he has a plan for us, even if we don't understand it at the time, and know that we are keeping you in our thoughts and our prayers. God bless you.
Okay, thank you, sir. We appreciate the kind of words, Provost, we really do. The next person we're gonna have come up to speak is the lady that has been the superstar for us throughout this whole process. Ms. Young.
Good evening, everyone. I heard about Ron Harris before he started teaching at Howard in 2006. He was legendary in many ways, many ways. We all have Ron Harris stories, some that you will not hear today. This is a story of Ron, the journalism giant. That's what he was throughout his career, and especially in the classroom. At Howard, he was initially assigned a specialized class for the highest achieving, most dedicated students. Before long, a wider range of students had the opportunity to benefit from his journalistic excellence and special brand of tough love. From entry-level students to capstone reporters taking their last class before graduation. Many students wish they had benefited from students like Ron Harris earlier in their matriculation at Howard. But truth be told, more than a few initially worried that they might not survive. For the Ron Harris experience, whether you're a student, faculty member, friend, or especially foe, is not for the faint of heart. When I was department chair, a student or two would come to my office during the first or second week of class, worried whether they'd survive Ron's high standards. I'd smile and tell them that everything was going to be okay. Some students were still skeptical. One student said that Ron was so demanding that he would mess up his GPA, that he might not graduate on time, and that he wouldn't be able to pledge his father's fraternity. None of that happened. He grew to love Ron's teaching techniques and became almost like a journalistic son. Ron said he was fairly clear that his responsibility in teaching students was to engage them, to challenge them, to inspire them, and to prepare them. As founder of the Howard University Youth Service and coordinator of our presidential and midterm elections, he was proud to send students' work to our youth partners around the country. He encouraged students by telling them their stories had dramatically improved. He cheerfully shared that your stories are playing across the nation, or your stories are getting lots of traction. As Professor Emerita Paula Barney often said, we teach what we do and do what we teach. While all of us are still practicing journalists, filmmakers, audio professionals, and audio engineers, Ron took it to an even higher level. He inspired students by sharing how he covered Hurricane Katrina, how he was embedded with troops in Iraq, reported in Portuguese as bureau chief in Brazil, how he covered the halls of power in the capital of the Western world, and how he was part of the Pulitzer Prize-winning team covering the aftermath of the Rodney King controversy. Ashley Southall, now correspondent for the New York Times, said that his legacy lives on in former students like me. At Howard and many HBCUs, professors often feel like family members. We're nurturing but blunt. We cut to the chase and we give students reality checks. Ron could be especially blunt. For some students, this journalism giant could be a giant pain in the neck. He'd tell you if your story was a mess or ask, what were you thinking? One student jokingly said, we must be kin because only family could talk to you like that. The subject line of emails came with warnings for some students, as in, this is not it. If after reading my comments you are unclear, please call me. Or I'm under the impression that you're planning on dropping public affairs reporting. But he also challenged his peers and spoke up if he felt someone was cheating students out of their education. One time he told us, you guys have got to do something about this. So-and-so is an extremely talented journalist and can be a tremendous asset, but this instructor is truly hurting students by having them do clip jobs and this reporting. Even when you butted heads with Ron, you knew he had the best at heart, said Professor Jennifer Thomas, who couldn't be here this evening. The students loved him, and he allowed them to call him day or night and made the rest of us look bad. As the editor of HU News Service, he pushed the students to excellence without excuse, which is our motto. Sometimes Ron would say things that could make smoke come out of people's ears. Over time, he became like an adoring, sometimes annoying, but always protective big brother. So I would tell him about himself and tell him when he went too far. Sometimes he listened, sometimes he didn't. Even in retirement, Ron continued to help with story ideas, contacts for sources, and edits, like last fall when students covered the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. His legacy is alive and well at Howard. He will be missed, but we encourage you to support our scholarship fund in Ron's name for Journalists of Tomorrow, who will follow in his footsteps. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to bring up one of his former students, Rachel Huggins. And he has some other ones in here who might want to say something about the program.
Thank you, Professor Lynn. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Huggins, School of Communications, Howard alumna, 2008. So I met Professor Harris 2006. I'm not sure how I got in his class because this is going to be a funny story. I was a sophomore and I tried very hard to get out of the class. I even messaged Professor Lamb because I thought it was just going to be a regular reporting and writing course, and I could submit, something with a quote and a lead that I'm still working on because I have 5 other classes, and I can submit this assignment. And so I did that, and he immediately, he threw the assignment in the trash, but that's fine because it was really bad. But he set me down, and he was like, Rachel, what are you doing? And so he gave me line edits about restructuring what I wrote and like, hey, you need to go out and find an actual story in the community and you need to come back and try this again. And so I guess I probably didn't want to have a D or an F. So I went back to my dorm and I was like, let me reach out to someone. So I randomly got the information from Bobby Seale, who is a co-founder of the Black Panther Party. I'm from Oakland, California. If he's from Oakland, California, he picked up and I was able to interview him, which became a two-part series in the Afro-American newspaper, and really actually changed the trajectory, for me at Howard, getting other awards and accolades. But his investment in me, I was not one of the star students. I had people in my class who were the actual editors or soon to be of the Hilltop. And so I'm just this, this girl who wants to be a writer, but didn't know how to really construct that. And so he just challenged me to hone my craft. And then let's say I wrote an article, he's like, okay, more opportunities. Let's say I messed that up. Like he was always available. As you all know, he was always on his phone. So you can call him anytime, go to lunch, make connections. And so just even, as I mentioned, that was 20 years ago, someone who even asked about my father and developed a friendship, who's here, Hosea Huggins. He's just someone who is memorable to so many students. And like Professor Lim said, like the tough love, if I didn't really have those experiences, I would have just been coasting along. But it really did take someone to say, you know what, she's low key, she's in the class, but like she really has some potential. And it took someone like you to hone in and just improve my confidence overall as a communicator. And so I'm just so thankful for his guidance over these past 20 years. And it just means so much to have met someone who, could have that investment in myself and so many others.
Thank you so much. So I want to just reflect on something real quick that Young shared. Young shared just a minute ago. I call her Young because she's family. About how he tough. If you met how tough he was on students, you can imagine how tough he was on students. You imagine living in a house with him. It was something to behold. But obviously he put his heart into it. The next person that we'd like to have come up and speak is going to be one of his best friends. But I'm going to explain a couple things to you guys real quick, because I know you see some artifacts and things up here on display. Some of these items, and I'll go through each one and let you know where they came from. The first one, for all the students and people that were familiar with on Howard's campus, is this bag. This bag. This is now my bag. And this is one of the two leather bags. My brother has the other. That we have as part of our Pop's legacy amongst art and a bunch of other things that I'm sure a lot of people in there, and I want it back, by the way. I'm just kidding. But I'll just say that's one of his bags. It's one of his reporter's bags, as well as the bag when he was a professor there. This came from the boat that we were able to retrieve, and I'm going to explain where this came from, as well as this light right here. This light came off the boat that was the one that owned it when he passed away. This light came off the boat. These items were given to us by the Coast Guard. If you guys see back here, this is when my dad, at one point, and the people from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch will be very familiar with this, that he was a wartime correspondent for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. The cities are on here are from the Missouri National Guard that he went with when he left from St. Louis to go to Iraq and do the reporting. He had a very good friend, Adam Coturo, who could not be here today. Who was a photographer that gave us a lot of great photos of him in war. You will see some of those photos if you guys took the opportunity to do the QR code. You'll see the picture of him and Adam on there. So this is very precious that we have this at our house now. This is the U.S. Coast Guard that actually, the day that my dad felt that we believe he fell off the boat, this particular Coast Guard company came down to, we went to visit with them. Me, my brother, and my sister, we went to visit with the Coast Guard, and they were just very hospitable, very good people. We have a lot of good photos that we're going to end up sharing later with people that you'll be able to see. But they were very hospitable, so they did a great job. And the first responders that were there the day that my dad went missing. And this bill will be explained a little bit later because it's going to be part of the ceremony. Okay, so the next person I would like to call up is gonna be his good friend, Jude Shepard, to share some words with us, about my dad and, his good friend.
Yannick has better eyes than I, so I have to bring a big pad and see what I gotta read. First, I want to express my deepest condolences to the family. Tracy, I know your father would be proud of how you handled this, you and your brother, or Ivy. Like many of you, I've been still trying to process this. Anyway, I hope some of what I have to say gives you solace, understanding, or better yet, love for my friend. Ron Harris and I were very different people, but we were kindred spirits. We were both the sons of public school teachers and we grew up in the Jim Crow South. As young men, we made our way to Los Angeles in the 1980s. There we practiced journalism, rode motorcycles, and witnessed the city become the nation's epicenter of cultural innovation and racial reckoning. We bought homes in the city 2 blocks apart from each other, and we stayed a decade. Ron was that rare combination of intelligence, compassion, outrage, and inquisitiveness. You could talk to Ron about the band Parliament Funkadelic or the jazz vocalist Frank Sinatra. Ron would ponder the prose of playwright Amiri Baraka, and in the next breath, marvel at Kyrie Irving dribbling a basketball. Ron collected art, wrote a critically acclaimed book, traveled the world, and taught students and cajoled voters to go to the poll. He possessed a rare combination of journalistic skepticism and folksy Southern sensibility that made him unique and captivating. I remember feeling out of sorts during my first December in Los Angeles because there were few evergreens decorated with holiday ornaments. Instead, I saw palm trees in LA's Crenshaw district wrapped in aluminum foil and ribbons. I was trying to explain all of this to Ron when he pointed out a suggestion. So counterintuitive, I nearly fell out my chair. Well, Ron said, let's drive down to Tijuana and go Christmas shopping. I said, Tijuana, Mexico? Then Ron leaned in and explained with that sheepish grin of his. In Tijuana, my brother, you can buy Christmas gifts for your whole family for $20. So me, Ron, and his good friend, the A Squad, went to Tijuana. After Mexico, I talked Ron into going to Brazil in 1984 because I was captivated by a George Duke album called A Brazilian Love Affair. It was the first trip outside of North America for both of us. And after we arrived, Ron and I, full of energy, walked the entire city of Rio de Janeiro all day long. But by late afternoon, we noticed the restaurants had closed and the streets were empty. We clueless tourists didn't realize that the locals were at home resting up for the night celebration. So we went back to the hotel and changed for a party we had been invited to. But a couple of hours past midnight, we were gassed and thinking about heading back to our hotel. Then this Brazilian woman looked at our listless faces while we were sitting on the couch and stayed to see the sunrise over the beach. We demurred, but she persisted. You Americans, she said, you know how to make a living, but you don't know how to live. And so we spent the rest of our lives trying to disprove that Brazilian woman's aphorism about American behavior. That motivation was manifest in Ron's work too. In the early 1990s, as a foreign correspondent for the Los Angeles Times, Ron wrote a front page story about middle-class Brazilian families living in the favelas, Brazilian slums, in homes with swimming pools and late model cars. Ron's story debunked the trope that favela residents were hopelessly poor and violent. The story was so insightful that the leading Brazilian newspaper, Jornal do Brasil, put Ron's article on its front page. In my 30 years as a journalist, I have rarely seen a major news outlet do that. When Ron returned to the US, he switched employers and worked for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch newspaper. He volunteered to cover the war in Iraq, reinvigorating his passion for journalism. But after Ron's first tour, I urged him not to go back after he told me an officer in a platoon he had been embedded with had been killed by an IED while out on patrol. Ron left the dispatch in 2007 to hold administrative and teaching posts at Howard University for nearly 2 decades. At Howard, Ron brought energy, urgency, and purpose to the classroom. Former student Rachel Huggins, who you just heard from, said Ron was a fierce and meticulous editor. I walked into his journalism class 101, begrudgingly, she said, and left with a master class in discipline, grit, and old-fashioned news reporting. Ron retired from Howard and moved to Atlanta last year. There, he worked on getting out the vote for the presidential election. He made headway on another book and began developing a new cell phone app to help young people hone their sports skills. That was Ron, always engaged, pedal to the metal, still determined after all these years to disprove that Brazilian woman's take on typical American behavior. My final recollection of Ron is not this past March when my wife, son, and I had dinner with him in Atlanta. It was 7 years ago. Ron and I had invited 10 friends to sail off the coast of Cuba in 2018. But soon after we left Havana, we ended up in a harrowing race to outrun Hurricane Michael. Our 2-man crew ran the catamaran boat at top speed all night long over choppy waters to get away from the storm and make it to Cayo Largo. I had insisted that everybody see Cayo Largo because it was supposed to be one of the most spectacular beaches in the world. Our exhausted crew succeeded us in getting us there safely. Afterward, the crew dived into the water to get fresh fish and lobster for dinner, and we motored away under the nighttime sky. Hearing distant thunder, I went out on the lower deck and noticed a lightning storm illuminating the darkness behind the boat. Ron came out on the upper deck and saw the lightning show too, and then looked at me with a big grin. With a hurricane in our rear view, the lightning dancing in the sky was the perfect ending to a perfect day. From the day I met him in 1983 on his first sailboat in Marina del Rey, Ron Harris was always at one with the sea. The water was his sanctuary. No doubt we are all grieving today over his loss, but please know this, Ron died doing what he loved. Wind into space, pedal to the metal, head to the sky.
Thank you. That was good. Thank you very much. All right, the next gentleman I would like to have come up to speak is someone that I recently had the joy of meeting. Real special gentleman, Captain Lamont Presser.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a sailor. My name is Captain Lamont Presley. I want to acknowledge the other sailors in the room. Captain Dave Robinson. He was with Ron Bledsoe. Captain Curtis Cobb. Captain Clarence London. Captain Abdallah, he does no longer have a boat, but he's a sailing time. Captain Todd Duncan. Let's see anyone else. Oh, Denise, Captain Arthur, Fuller. Carol Green, yes. I want to acknowledge them because we all were good friends with Ron. Ron was, he was always in the middle. He belonged to 2 clubs, the Neptunes, sailing club, boating club, yacht club. The Neptunes Yacht Club, and he also belonged to the Universal Sailing Club. I met Ron through Universal Sailing Club. We've known each other about 20 years. Went out one day, well, we met at the club, went out sailing, happened to have a beautiful day, the 2nd of January, and I think it was 2005, 2006, around there. One of the worst things that a sailor can experience is the loss of another sailor. And you know that this sailor was competent, but he was making a bad decision. And that's one of the things, reason why I called him. I called him and I demanded that he send me his location. And when I didn't hear from him the next day or that afternoon, I contacted the Coast Guard. And with this accordance. And one of the hardest things for me to accept when they came back and they said they couldn't find anyone on board. That just left a hole in me. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just, where's Ron? I didn't know how to contact his family. I had to call other people to contact his family. And also send the information to the Coast Guard so they can contact the family. We make mistakes, but sometimes that ocean will not forgive you on your mistakes. Will not forgive those mistakes. Ron made a mistake and it didn't forgive him. But I'm not going to talk about his mistakes. I want to talk about the other things that he had overcome. Ron had cancer, he overcame cancer. He had bone disease, he was overcoming that. Ron was always optimistic. We would go to breakfast on the weekends, you know, when he was living on his boat in Baltimore. We'd sit there, we'd have a cup of coffee, we'd talk, we'd go to the jazz club, we were buddies, you know, we were just two buddies and sailors, and there's a few of us in here that shared the same recreations with him also. But we were just, it was a pleasure to wake up in the morning, call Ron up and say, man, want to get some breakfast? Yeah, I'll meet you at the gate. And we walk over and get something to eat. When we said farewell to Ron last year, I think it was, we had another friend, sailing friend, Dolly Turner's house, Gary and Dolly, in Annapolis. We weren't saying farewell, we were just saying good luck in the next passage, the next chapter. We had a wonderful time. We stood up, we shared stories about Ron, and you know, it was. We knew that he was opening another chapter. And then when he was there, he'd come back every once in a while, come back to Baltimore. He was here a couple of months, about 3 months ago. And then he decided he needed to change, he needed to move the boat. But before that time, while he was in Baltimore, again, shows, camaraderie, hanging out on the boat, hanging out in the marina. And so to me now, I lost a dear friend. One of the hardest things to do is see, we had a friend in the sailing community a year and a half ago that had a plan. He was going to sail around the world. And he was lost at sea also. They never found his body. Down in the Gulf, off the coast of Mexico. So, you know, when we get out there on the water, it's not always guaranteed we're going to come back. We love it that much that we kind of endanger ourselves knowing that we might not come back. I heard people's stories, people not going out and falling off and not coming back. I've been doing this almost 25 years now. And you can hear the stories, you know, recklessness. But I'm happy to be able to say that I've been able to take people out and come back safely. You know, and so whenever I get out, I know that preparation is very important. And so I always try to make sure that I prepare well enough to get back. You know, one of the things they didn't share about Ron. Ron was a captain also. He took the Coast Guard captain's test. So he had a certificate, but he never got the credentials. Did it twice, passed twice. I don't know why he did it twice, but he did it twice. But I also want to acknowledge someone that Ron took under his wing to help work on his boat. I had a relationship with the seer right here, was still living. He was kind of mentor. Ron needed someone, a second hand, to work on his boat, and so he took the seer in, and the seer knows a lot about boats. Matter of fact, Ron used to say, man, I know so much about boats that I shouldn't know. So I know stuff. I know, because he was always working on his boat. He said, I know so much stuff, I shouldn't even know this stuff. I don't even want to know this stuff. But he was passing it on to me, he passed it on to Basir, all the knowledge, that they had. So, I'm giving my condolences to the family. If there's anything I can do, to help and to, transition in Baltimore, and to the family. You guys, you don't know how much, Ron was in my life, in our lives. If there was a meeting at the club, it was because Ron had set up the clubhouse for the meetings for the safety club. And so Ron was a big factor in the growth of the safety club in Baltimore. So thank you for letting me share. And
Thank you so much, Mark. We appreciate you. And thank you for sharing your kind words. The next gentleman, I'd like to introduce, he is, my dad's first cousin. And he doesn't like me calling him Uncle Richard, but he is my Uncle Richard. I'm sorry, he's still for that title. And, he's a very dear man. He's a leader in our family, a person that I really look up to and admire. And, that I'm gonna be calling on, a lot lately, since I don't have my father to talk to anymore. But he's been a very important person. I like to call him Mr. Richard Rose.
Good evening, everybody. Let me give you a little bit of history of where Ron came from. Because Ron looked at a barrier as a challenge. It's not going to stop. We came from, his father was from Camden, Alabama, which is like about 50 miles from Selma. Everybody knows Selma. They couldn't vote there either. And his mother grew up in Illabena, Mississippi. And they couldn't vote there either. But his mother would tell the story that when she was little, my grandmother had a tailor shop, and they sold for the white families there. And her instructions were, we do not go to the back door. These are for you. We can take them in the front door, or you can come downtown and pick them up. And that's what we all understood going forward. We do not go to the back door. Ron did not go to the back door. Ron was still in LA when we learned he had a failed disease. They told him 30 plus years ago he had 7 years to live. Ron beat the bank. And he felt it. Every day was recognizing that I'm not supposed to be here. He's going to do something that was going to be significant and meaningful and fun. He was theoretically as well as my first cousin, but we were cousins. We were brothers. And we shared a lot of the same things. A barrier is just a challenge. Give us a few minutes, we'll figure out how to get around. And we absolutely will not go to the back door. Ron's art, music, all of that we shared. But he brought to everything excellence. He gonna do the best he could. They cut Ron off the basketball team at White Station. He was an early integrated white school. So they cut him. So there was a fairgrounds about 1.5 miles from where we lived with about 6, 7 basketball courts. He would go over there and play in combat boots. And he went the next year he was starting. It's just, isn't it? Whatever it was, failure was not an option. And he was in. I picked him up from Howard. First time I come to Howard in 2013. He was coming to Atlanta to get a bone marrow transplant, which he did. And so after he was getting better, I had taken over the NACP of Atlanta. And he went to the first meeting with me. And I had done a lot of community stuff. So I knew that 10% of the people do 90% of it. Ron couldn't get that hard. To Ron, everybody had to do their part. And so we went to the meeting and ended up, I had two people I knew that was gonna work. And I was okay with it. So Ron, we got in the car, Ron said, well, Rick, what are you gonna do? So those people told you they're not gonna do anything. I said, Ron, don't worry about it, you know, we'll take care of it. 2 blocks later, they asked me the same thing. And so finally, I just had to tell him, in 6 months, only 2 of those people would be there. That satisfied him because it was a plan that he could understand that was consistent with his perception that, hey, failure is not an option. It's just how you gonna get it done. So, you know Ron for various ways. I know Ron from when his mother came and father came back from a naval reserve with a little long-legged, bow-legged boy. And so he's been there with all his life. I mean, with his illness, we all know when we get to this world, we have a ticket to leave. The question is, what do we do between those periods? When we get here, we get out of here. I think Ron lived a good life. And I think people here express that. And we want to, again, from behalf of the family, we got some other family members here, where Jay and Harlan, from the Hills side of the family, they came down from Harlem. And of course, Ron's daughter-in-laws are here. And, but most of all, his friends and his students and his co-workers are here, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate you, man. And we have a very, very special guest that I want to bring up right now. So if you guys didn't know, one thing about my dad, he was a writer. Obviously, he was a writer, but he also co-wrote 2 books. One of the books was about the wonderful president we have in the House now that started the insurgents on the Capitol. Well, one of the officers from that insurgents is here. His name is Harry Dunn. I had the pleasure to meet him, talk to him on the phone prior to this event. He is here now, and if you don't mind, Mr. Dunn, I'd like to come up and say a few words. And before he even speaks, I don't know how they got past the brothers. And yeah, I like to say, here you go, sir.
Good evening. Words fail me often when we talk about loss, sorrow. People handle grief various ways. And I've always wondered, how do you greet somebody when somebody may be grieving, or you think somebody should be grieving, and they may not be? And I just always came up with, let the memories, the good times sustain you. And I didn't get to know Ron. Ron got to know me. Ron and I wrote a book together, which became a New York Times bestseller. I was very proud of that accomplishment. I was also called Standing My Ground, Capitol Police Officers Fight for Accountability and Good Trouble after January 6th. I was at the Capitol on January 6th. That's not why we're here. Tell my story about Ron getting to know me and me not getting to know Ron. I interviewed writers, co-authors to help me out with this book. And I didn't want a ghost writer. I wanted somebody to help me because I think I'm capable. And, and getting to know Ron, like the story you just told about who's doing the work. When I interviewed him, he was probably like the 3rd person that I interviewed. It was clear that Ron was the guy that was gonna help me write this book. I'm getting a little emotional, you know, you don't think about it, right, until you actually have that time to think about it. When I found out about Ron's passing, I was in Hawaii. And I'm blaming Ron, because Ron's gonna owe me a new vacation. Because when I was in Hawaii, it had been over 5 years since January 6th, and I had not taken a break. I hadn't taken a moment for myself. For this time, I said, I'm gonna take a moment for myself. 5 years later, and I get the news. It's like, God damn it, Ron, you selfish. Should wait till I finish my dang vacation. But that's how Ron was. When we were writing our book, me and Ron went through it. And you talked about this story about how he would demand excellence and toughness. And I did too. And we fought, and I didn't give an inch. Damn you, Ron, will you write the damn book? And I threw the phone across the hall. Well, hey, that ain't it. And you need something, you don't tell me what to do, Ron. You don't tell me, this is my story. You writing it for me. Oh, Harry, I know that. I was like, you don't know nothing. And I'm fired up. And he sees how passionate I am. He's just as passionate too. We hung up on each other. Maybe 2 days go by, we don't talk. I ain't texting him, the hell with him. The hell with him, I am not texting him. And then he is prepared to learn, he said the same damn thing. The reason why we ended up talking again, well, we would have cooler heads prevailed. The editor called and said, hey, I need some updates. I was like, you want to update? This asshole. So we got on a 3-way call. And then Ron actually said to the editor, you know what, let Harry and I talk, and then we'll call you back. And then Ron said, Harry, I'm sorry. I said, no, I'm sorry. We both care. We're both really passionate about what we're going through, about getting this story told. January 6th affected Ron tremendously. And I didn't know much about him, but he knew everything about me. Everything about me. It was a memoir. It was his job to know everything about me. He would talk to my parents without me knowing. He would talk, then he was like, well, tell me about your relationship with your sisters. And I was telling him about an incident, a fight that I had with my sisters growing up. He was like, no, Janice told me that. Janice, how did you know? He had already talked to my sisters. I'm like, bro, what you calling my family? And my friends would send me messages, hey, this guy just hit me up, is he legit? Bro, how you know? And yeah, I saw you were friends with them on Facebook, and I sent him a message. You intruded on my friends, dude. Like, that stadium, stop. But that was Rondo. And we became so close. We would spend hours for a year and some change. I don't even remember how long the process was, but hours every single day. And I would ask Ron questions about himself as I'm talking about my story. He was like, no, we'll talk about it later, Later never came. Until it did. The book was so successful, we got the opportunity to go around. I was on the damn View with the book. It was so successful. And I owe it to Ron. And I said in the book, and the thank you, I said, Ron, what a fantastic run. We made some magic. Let's do it again. And we wrote a children's book after that about January 6th. And then for that one, we self-published it. So we would go out, and Ron said, I'm gonna be your publicist. I was like, Ron, you're the writer, you ain't a publicist. I can do it all, Harry, don't worry. Trust me, I got you. Harry, just trust me, okay? Ron, but what about Harry, just trust me. And I'd hang up the phone, I wouldn't know what the hell the plan was. And next thing he said, I got you 3 lineups booked in Atlanta, you get on a flight, you come down, huh? He did have it. He had it under control. He was so passionate, and that's what I take away from Ron. He also He got me suspended from work. Just as Ron is passionate, I am too. I'm very outspoken, very outgoing, especially when I see something wrong. You speak up and you say something that you see that's wrong. And then in the aftermath of January 6th, a couple months after, you had all these politicians, all these talkers, and everybody had a damn opinion about it. And if it wasn't the right opinion, I put my foot in, I let you know, this ain't it. And when we're writing the book, I said something wrong. He said, "Hey, this is great. That's a great, you need to put that. Actually, I'm putting it down. You need to tweet about that." I said, "You damn right I do, man." And I called one of the senators that I'm responsible for protecting, a racist. And I said, "You're an asshole, and you come in the back door next time you come into the Capitol. How about that?" That tweet wasn't even up 35 seconds. Ring. Yeah. Officer Dunn, we need you to delete that message and we'll see you in the morning. 5-day suspension. Called Ron, he said, "So?" I said, "So, that's unpaid." So, he's like, "But hell, you said what you had to say." I said, "I know, and I don't regret it. But that's 5 days without pay, Ron. What are we doing?" "You'll be fine. You'll be fine." And I was fine. I loved Ron's efforts in the last couple of years, campaigning, getting the political side out of him. I went to Atlanta probably about 3 or 4 times with the Harris campaign, being a surrogate. And I had everything scheduled, and Ron said, no, that ain't enough. We need more. And Ron was just so fired up, and he was passionate about everything that he touched. He wanted it to be the best, he wanted it to be perfect. And that includes relationships with people. Just like I know from the arguments that we had, they were all in love, but it wasn't just surface level. It was deeper than that. It wasn't just, "Hey, you're a project that I'm working on. I see you. You mean a lot to me. I care about you." And man, I care about him too. So this moment, to the family, to his friends, to his loved ones, may the good times sustain you in the tough times that you will endure in the rest of your life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that brings up something that Officer Downer said about passion, and in particular, my father. I got to come from behind you for 1 second to talk about this. So one story that I share with only a few people, and then my wife definitely knows. When my dad went on that last boat trip, we were at each other's throat, arguing, fussing. I said, "Dad, we need to stop talking for a minute." I said, "Because all we doing is arguing." I said, "We are not communicating effectively." I said, "You making your point, you're not listening to me. I'm making my point, I'm not listening to you." I said, "We are going nowhere." "Well, fine, I don't want to talk to you for 6 months." I said, "Dad, really?" I said, "Man, just give it a couple of days." This is in the midst of this boat trip. Now, some would say, "Man, you weren't talking to your dad when your dad passed away. Do you regret it?" Obviously, I would not want to be talking to my dad, but I didn't know this was going to happen, right? But do I regret it? No, because you don't get everything that you want when you love somebody all the time. When you love somebody, things are going to happen. You're going to say some things, and sometimes you're going to say it the wrong way. Sometimes you're going to say it at the wrong time, and it may not be the right time for that person. But if you love that person and you miss a relationship with anybody, you have a relationship with your father, you have a relationship with your mother, your sister, your wife, your brothers, and all people in your family. If you love them enough, you will say some things that sometimes they don't want to hear. The last argument we had is about that boat. And I said, "Dad, leave that boat alone. Sell that thing. You don't need, I said, how many men need 2 boats?" And he was, "Well, I do what I want to do." I said, "Okay, but I'm not coming down there to South Carolina and fool around with that boat." I said, "I'll come down there if you want to sell it, but I'm not coming down there to get on that boat with you." And that was the last conversation we had. And we argued about that, and we fussed about that. And what I do regret is missing my father, but I don't regret the fact that we were passionate about what we were passionate about, and that the timing was off. It could have been better, could have been better for us, but that's love. You don't get it the way you want it all the time. Sometimes it comes, sometimes it hits you in the mouth. And it hurts. You gotta gather yourself and pick yourself back up and figure out where to walk again. So I don't regret that. What I do regret is that I don't have my father ask another question to again. If you give me 5 minutes for I'll trade anything that's willing to do it. I know a lot of men have lost before me, and this is just my time. But if you have one, if you have a chance, you got somebody that you love, you still have fortunate to have a father in your life, you better take the time to talk to him. Okay, I'm gonna call my sister-in-law to here now. Teresa Abdallah, my beautiful sister-in-law is gonna come up and take the shift from where it's coming from.
Tracy would bring me up after. You give everybody a verbal fashion. I had to write this down just so I can make sure I actually get through it, so you will bear with me. I stand here today as a representative of my husband, my daughter Imani, my son Omari. When we learned about Daddy Ron's passing, one of the first things Haji told me, because I was having moments and I am the emotional one. He said, you know, Dad didn't want that. He told us. We've been planning his passing for a long time, as Cousin Richard shared. He has been trying to prepare us for his passing. But it's hard to remember that those check-ins aren't coming anymore. I'm not gonna get another request to read something that he wrote. I'm not gonna get to hear his voice change octaves when he get excited. My sister-in-law and I, we affectionately call my father-in-law Daddy Ron. He was Daddy Ron for us. I never worried. We never had to worry when he was having conversations with our husbands and we weren't in the room because we always had an advocate in the room. And I promised that I wasn't gonna say nothing as long as he was with us. But after he would have that conversation with our husbands, he'd come tell us everything. And you know what they say about snitching. So I kept quiet. I kept quiet because I knew it was gonna get me Daddy Ron loved teaching. But a few years ago, when he retired, he's like, I want to spend time with my family. I want to be present. And he got to see Kyle be an amazing father to his son, Jason. That's my nephew, Tracy's son. He actually flew out for Imani to see her new home when she moved into her home. He made sure that he was going to be present for my son's senior year. And drove him back and forth to school, drove him to training sessions. He actually had one of those moments that y'all had. One day, Haji and I drove up and they just gotten home from practice and Daddy Ron was saying, you don't talk to me like that. And my son was saying, but Granddad, you won't listen. And then we later learned that he wasn't driving his best at that time. And he had turned in front of a person, an older gentleman, and that gentleman had hit the truck with his cane. So it was just one of those times. And Ohio and I were left trying to figure out what is going on that y'all are talking to each other like that. But in true Daddy Ron fashion, as soon as he saw us, it was squashed. It was all good. He couldn't wait to have another story with him. He made sure that he was present at basketball games. He got to travel with us to Arizona. He was present. And I thank God that he answered my prayer when we learned that he had bone marrow. He's going to have a bone marrow transplant. You know, I prayed to God that he would bless him to be present at Amori's graduation. And I tried to quickly change that and say, college graduation, college, you know, but we didn't get there. But he was present at his high school graduation. And then when we lost Grandma Harris last year, we all started coming together more as a family. We had multiple family reunions together. So we spent time with this man who I truly adore. I truly, truly adore. He wasn't perfect. And if you sat with him, he'd tell you so. He shared the good, the bad, and the ugly. He never pretended to be some perfect person. And because of that, he inspired me. I love him dearly, and I'm gonna miss him terribly. There are truly no words to describe that day. And I know I'm gonna still have moments. I know I'm gonna still have moments. But I'm gonna choose to remember those fun times. I'm gonna choose to remember his laughter. I'm gonna choose to remember that when he cooked, you knew he cooked because he'd have sauce over there. Sauce over there. We found sauce for about 4 years in special places after that it running. And that's the stuff that I'm gonna hold on to, that I'm gonna remember. And he loved every single person whose life he touched. He truly, truly did. It wasn't a facade. If he spent time with you, he cared for you and he wanted to be there. He was present with you. My husband used to say, I'd come down and my dad be on the phone with my girlfriends, having conversations with my girlfriends. So like, talking to me, like, oh, this is so and so. You know, it was who he was. He loved connecting with people. And I am going to miss that. So if y'all get a chance, y'all share your stories with us, because it's going to be great for his grandkids to know the amazing man he was and to hear those stories from him. So please do share.
That's my sister-in-law, y'all. Okay. 1 second. Okay. At this point in time, I'd like to open up the mic so if anyone would like to come up and share some kind words about my dad. If you don't mind, if you do decide you would like to come up, please try to limit it to a certain amount of time. Howard University was kind enough to donate this space to us today. We want to be able to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak. So if you'd like to come up, please, someone up, line up here or step up after the person sits down. I'd be happy to have you come on up. Please introduce yourself and tell us how you came about.
My name is Fred Sweets. This is a moment about the brotherhood of man. I met Ron Harris when I went to work for the Los Angeles Times. They allocated money for you to live for 3 weeks, find decent housing. At the end of the 3 weeks, I couldn't find what I wanted in LA. I told Ron, and Ron said, why are you even worried about that? You're gonna stay at my house in Lamert Park. You don't have to worry about anything. And when you find something you like, go to it. And then, by the way, this weekend, we're going out to Marina Del Rey. Because Drew mentioned, we're going out on the boat. So this is gonna be a lot of fun, this whole deal. And I won't tell you the details about the rest of the fun we had in the months that I spent at the house in Lamert. But Ron was a good brother. He meant a lot to me. The last time I talked to him, he said, you're not doing nothing. Come on down here to Atlanta and let's register some voters. And I said, man, come on. I'm still an objective reporter. I gotta hang back. And he said, well, we do it quietly. What you gotta do? We gotta get over the goal line. The best thing about Ron's passing is that he went out doing something he loved. And I tell my kids, my 4 kids, whenever I go out on my bicycle or whenever I take a cross-country drive, hey, remember, party hard and know that went out doing something I love, should something happen. So Ron, we'll miss you madly. We all have fond memories and many of us have stories, but Tracy, he was a good brother and I'm so glad I had him in my life when I did.
All right, like to go ahead and open up the floor for another brother back in, if anyone wants to come up. Hey, man.
Yeah.
What's up? Hey, this gentleman here, Phil Dixon, man, come here, man. Man, this is my guy. Where is good to see you, Phil? Phil Dixon, go.
Y'all grew up.
Yeah.
Ron Harris, changed my life. I was in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Inquirer, fighting a lot of losing battles, going to law school at night, trying to raise 2 kids. And it got to the point where it was clear that I needed to make a change. And because I am not, let's just say, like, I'm slow to make decisions sometimes. Ron Harris from the Los Angeles Times, I don't know how he found out anything. Called me and said, brother, you ought to come to Los Angeles. You should come to the Los Angeles Times. So I did. And it was the right thing to do. It was like moving to Los Angeles when you lived your life on this side of the world. It's like the perfect place to go to heal. And Ron and I became really good friends. We stayed friends from 1986 till now. Ron liked to talk on the phone. I don't like to talk on the phone. But we had a relationship that worked. Ron would call me at the oddest times with the oddest issues. And sometimes you could say like, hey man, I'm coming up from the South, I'm in Atlanta, I'm in Richmond, can I stay at your house here? Come on. I have to remember when Ron came to the house that I had to set the alarm so that it wouldn't go off when people started moving around the house in the middle of the night. Because it never failed that for whatever reason, he would get up in the middle of the night, start moving around and but let me just get to the chase here. I came to Howard University at another juncture in my life. And among the best things I ever did was to bring Ron Harris to that Department of Journalism and basically turn him loose on the students. He came in, and it took a while. Sometimes I had to talk him down and remind him that these were, yes, we thought of them as our children, but they weren't our children. You can't cuss these kids. Can't cuss these kids out. They are ours, but they're not ours that way. But we put together a thing called the Howard University News Service. That was a great thing. What Ron did for me, and if anybody's ever been a manager, you know, you need somebody who will go through the punch for you sometimes because you just can't throw all the punches. You know, Ron was like, okay, go ahead, man, throw the punches, shake them up, man, and they come crying to me. That Mr. Harris, yeah, okay. But it worked. It worked. I think we had great success. I think we turned this place around. We turned it around. We turned it around.
and produced some really good students who went on to do great things. I'm gonna miss your father. I'm tremendous. You know, when people talk about like, what is a man? You know, a lot of people have a lot of theories about what manhood is. Ron Harris knew what manhood was. Knew how to be a man. And that's important. Because so many young Black men don't know how to be a man. I'm just wandering all over the place. Let me stop. Ron Harris I'm a gardener. I'm retired. I garden. I grow okra. I grow tomatoes. I grow sweet peppers. I grow hot peppers. And as long as I'd known Ron, I never knew until I guess a couple years ago that he was one of those rare people in life who really like okra.
Yeah.
So I had, you know, harvested some okra that morning, harvested some tomatoes, harvested some peppers, got some frozen corn from the supermarket, cooked up this dish with okra and corn and tomatoes and onions and garlic, which I think nobody liked but me. Because I'm country still. So Ron happened to be, it was one of those when Ron came through all of a sudden, I don't know where. I said, you want to try some of this, man? And he started eating my okra and tomatoes, my corn. I looked around, said, my brother, I'd like to have some also. In one of his books, he signed one of his books for me. And he said to Philip Dixon, a brother that I fell in love with the first time I met him. And I felt the same. Let me just end it there.
That was all right, man. Seeing that guy right there, man, just made this day what it's supposed to be. It was a celebration. Absolutely.
I went actually with Almighty and my brother Tracy to TV Apple.
It's Tommy Jordan.
Very clear that their apartments were very high, that's how they were able to locate the low. And so without those, they said they could put it up there or they could have them. So they were able to go straight to the boat. They actually took us out on the boat.
The rescue boat.
The rescue boat. And they were very, very thankful. So I just wanted to get that and tell them that that's any consolation.
Yes, absolutely. I believe that. And thank you, because the part was the one that was in contact with the Coast Guard. He was the one that called me. I mean, 100 out of 100 days I have my phone with me. That night that happened, I left my phone in my little man cave, and I was like, I know my dad gonna try to contact me. He didn't try to contact me, but my wife did. And then after that, my brother tried to call me and a bunch of other people. So it was those the night that we lost him. It's good to know that you had people like you in his life that cared enough about him to take their time to go the extra mile. So man, I cannot tell you how much we appreciate you. If you guys won't give me a second, I just want to acknowledge a few people. First of all, I would like to acknowledge Jonathan and Howard University for extending themselves to my family in this particular time. They gave us this space in this area for free. Let us host this event for free. let us use the facilities, use the services, and I really want to personally thank them for that. I have a lot of actually, please, how you guys okay, and we have a couple more people that do want to speak, but I want to personally acknowledge some people that have been along this path with us throughout this whole time. Number one, the first person I do that I want to acknowledge that I better do is my wife. She has dealt with me, prior to losing my father. We lost my grandmother to some very unfortunate circumstances about a year and a half ago. So our family's had a little rough go at it, here lately. Fortunately, and if I could share something with you, when we lost my grandmother, my dad was the firstborn child. I was the first grandchild. And I was, in a lot of parts of my life, raised by my grandparents, my dad's parents, my grandfather, my grandfather. Someone said about being a man, he learned how to be a man. That's James Harris. James Harris is the man in our family, still is to the day. My dad, he held my dad to a standard. My dad carried that standard on to this day. But that is what we all should be appreciative of and realize how valuable it is, not just to have a black father in your house and have him in your household, but every black man that's out here doing it, man, trust and believe it matters. You may not believe it, you may think they stupid, they go give up on you, and them kids, man, it is worth the effort. Please keep it up, because without you, they don't have a chance, man. And the world's out there to eat them alive. Y'all, please continue your efforts with them. And because it makes a difference. I have a lot of good friends that came out to support me today that are real black fathers, and I love y'all, man. But I want to get back to acknowledging my wife, my sister-in-law, my sister, who is not my dad's direct child, but she has been with me every step of the way. Every step of the way. My brother-in-law, Marcus, where are you? Wait, man, another brother. Once again, not related by blood, but we are now. My Uncle Richard Rose, who has been, once again, he's a leader in this family, in our family. And I want to tell him thank you as well. I want to thank you, Shaka, and his lovely wife. They have supported us throughout this process. And one thing I do want to say, all my friends that I went to Howard with, please stand up. Frank, Riggs, where's my man Brent who's back? I'll tell you again. Greg Lord, thank God. Me and this guy, Marty Prince, back in Dr. Prince in the back, by the way. If you need some tea done, go see that man. Got Pittsburgh Family Dental right up Georgia Avenue. And he also operated out of tire shop. He'll take care of you, man. He'll hook you up. He's slanging tea. But he has been very helpful with me throughout this process, offering everything he could, addresses everything he can. So it's been very helpful throughout this process. But I've had the pleasure of growing up around these guys and having them around. They came out to support me. Most of them, all of them probably met my father at one point, I believe. And they admired the process. And I also want to thank my cousin Marcus Fink. He came all the way from Little Rock today. Found out what we were doing, then hopped on the plane and came out here, didn't get a chance to change, you know, our system. They just started serving food and whatever we needed. So thank you guys very much. So we have the gentleman who wants to come up and speak, please come on up, sir.
Hi, I'd like to say something I'm sure a lot of you probably picked up on. Ron Harris is still alive, and you are so much like your father. My name is Kevin Davis. Ron and my good friend Ingrid introduced me some years ago, and it was like I'd known him all my life. And he said the same thing, man, it's like I've been knowing you forever. We became fast friends. As the students were saying, he decided he was going to make me his skipper. I'm going to make me his first mate. I was going to be his Gilligan. So I'm down there for a couple of weeks working on this boat with Ron, learning everything. And if I didn't do it, I had to do it exactly the right way. He tells me, hey, okay, well, look, be down here tomorrow because we're going to Martha's Vineyard. I was like, Martha's Vineyard? We're in Baltimore, by the way. He said, yeah. So I'm like, well, hey, great. We get on the boat and we're passing the heat still up there. So how long is this going to take? Me not thinking. He said, oh, about a week. So on that week's time, he had me, I mean, I learned everything. He taught me everything. I had to do it right. Skip to the point on the way up, quick aside. He was hearing you talk. I heard your voice. It was a phone conversation. And his son, his oldest son, they were going at it. Well, I was in the front cabin. I'm not sure. I'm going to get into this. And they're going back and forth and back and forth. And they hung up, and I didn't know if should come out or not. So I said, God damn that boy. I said, yeah. I said, my son too. He said, no, you know what the problem is? And we both said simultaneously, he's too much like you. That's So anyway, so we get up to Martha's Vineyard, come back. He had another friend. I don't know if he's here or not, but is that you there? Hey man, okay, yeah. We're coming back. He had a guy that was wanted to get a boat down in Norfolk. So we go from Baltimore to Norfolk. If you all know Ron used to like to take a little drink every now and then. So we're storming on the bay. Me, him, and Ron out on the bay going to Norfolk. Ron decides he was gonna start drinking. And I'm looking at Ron, it's not the boat ride, and Ron's like, and he said, I know he's falling out, leaving me in charge of the where's the stuff? And we couldn't, I was like, Ron, please get up, please get up. You can reach over and touch the water on a 43-foot sailboat. That's how far the wind stand. So we finally make it down. It was so funny. The poor guy who was buying the boat, he actually thought I was a captain. He said, man, you got us through this, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just so funny. And I was like, Ron, what happened? He said, well, you got this in. I taught you everything you needed to know. And I wanted to thank you for that. But your father was a man's man. And I've been so blessed to know him. And very one of the few guys that I say I truly admire. And you are your father, believe that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge some other people. We are live streaming this event right now. So we have people that are online, I think 50 plus people. One person that is not able to be here, but he will be in Memphis is my Uncle Gerard. He talked about my dad going through a 6-bill. If anybody has ever had any kind of bone marrow issue or anything like that, this is something that's common in the Black families in somewhat hereditary terms. The only way that you can come back as strong as you did was because you have a 10-point match. People can donate bone marrow, but it's going to only be a certain percentage that's going to allow you to be healthy for a certain amount of time. The best thing that could happen for you is to have a person that gives you 100%, which is you have to be born from the same mother and father. And unfortunately, we lost my Uncle Gary, but he had my Uncle Gerard, who I hope is watching right now. I just want to tell him thank you because you helped extend my dad's life, and we appreciate you, man. And I appreciate all my family that's online with life and blood. We are pretty much at the end of this program now, so we're gonna play a little music, folks. If anybody would like to come up and say some words, this is the time. Come on.
I'll tell you one more thing. We're gonna have something on Sunday in Baltimore.
Oh, let me give you a mic, Mark.
I just wanted to share that we're gonna have something in Baltimore, the voters of Baltimore on Sunday, from 2 on the water, and then we'll do something from 5 to 8 on land at Anchorage Marine if you're in Baltimore. If you need any more information, so see you guys.
2501 Boston Street, right? Okay, all right. I remember. Here you go, sir.
Good evening. My name is William Woodruff. Live in Baltimore. I met Ron through the Universal Sailing Club. So I'm a student of sailing, not of journalism. So when Ron left Annapolis, that's when I shared my sailing stories. So I will spare those for another time. But what I wanted to share about Ron, the good thing about Ron was that we went through some things on the boat. I sailed with him. When he speaks about that, he says 1 week trip to Martha's Vineyard. It probably took y'all 2 weeks, honestly, because I caught them in Cape May, New Jersey, and I just rode with them from Cape May to I went to the Newport Jazz Festival, and then I got off. If you hear a baby crying in the background, that's my daughter. But my wife is here. I had to get off the boat because my wife told me we both need to get off the boat. But what I will say, he mentioned like Ron decided to make jambalaya on the sailboat. And so when you mention things being all over the cabin, I still have the smell of jambalaya and French roast coffee burned into my nose to this day. And what I will say about like through the midst of all of that, when I was maybe nervous or stressed, calm. The voice, the way he spoke, his communication, he was always even keeled. He wasn't healing like the boat would in his tone or in his communication, but he was always calm and straightforward. Now, I'm hearing some new stories now about how he was with his journalism students and with his family, but on that boat, when it hit the fan or when the jambalaya hit the ceiling, he was calm. And so that is something that I've taken with me, not only on the boat, but dealing with my children, or my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old, is like in the midst of the chaos, they need that calm voice to see them through. And so I appreciate Ron for showing that to me. And as I learned today, it's like, it's gonna be okay if I'm gonna have to be that other person to, maybe not be so even keeled. So I appreciate what Ron has done for me. And I appreciate what I've learned about his family. And yep, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, would anybody else like to come forward? If not, okay, come on, Bill.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. I'm Jayla Shiver, Juke Shiver's son, Esquire. So unfortunately, the journalists here who might have some legal issues with the DOJ in the coming months, I cannot save you. Y'all might be on your own on that one, but y'all be good. Hopefully. Okay. We have actually called Ron Uncle Ron between me and my brother in our household, which is kind of crazy because Ron is my dad's best friend. And it's like, your best friend's kids are an extension of your family, which as a young person I thought was kind of weird because I was just like, who is this dude basically related to us, sleeping in our basement for like 3 days and like is chilling it up with my dad and my mom? It's like, who is this guy? But what he taught me through all that time and all the moments between him and my father was the importance of brotherhood and fraternity and how to actually be a friend. Because you're growing up, you really don't have the examples. You kind of just figure it out. You have mutual, appreciations between one another. You happen to be in the same classroom. And as that time goes on, those mutual attractions will fade and you lose friendship. But the fact that my father and Ron were able to have a relationship for over 40 years teaches you how to actually remain friends and how to remain brothers. And as I progress in life, and I've met friends and associates and others, I've learned how to be a good friend and how to establish brotherhood with others because of Ron and because the lessons he showed me. Even though sometimes that involves being in a boat in the middle of nowhere, and you're just like, why are we on a boat? Ghetto boat, by the way. I was just like, I thought this was supposed to be a yacht, Ron. He's like, nah, this is it. I was like, all right, cool, sure, man. Even when you oversell your promises, they are still promises nonetheless. And they're promises that you can keep. And that's why I'll always appreciate about Ron and everything that he has taught me and my brother, and for all the moments and love he's appreciated to show my family. I thank him so much for being in my life and all yours too. Thank you so much.
By the way, I think I saved your room. A couple of weeks ago, so thank you. But we're gonna go ahead, guys. We're gonna play a little music now. He's gonna come up to
Just share a quote real quick.
please come on up. Just see a little bit. His brother here, become friends. Didn't even know each other. He was a gentleman that looked out for my dad. Had a few car wrecks with him. Had some time, man, and, damn, good brother.
Like you said, he had a problem with driving. The most exciting day of my life. 90 miles per hour under tractor trailers, 95. Fun. But like you said, ghetto boat, it feels like he was talking about my boat that I was working on. But it was kind of ghetto, but the thing was, we were working on it, and the whole thing was, I was out there, and the reason we got cool because everybody that was at the marina, he put me on the job and left town for a month. And he's paying me. He don't even know if I'm working. But with my work ethic, you know, just being who I am, when he got back, everybody, oh my God, this guy is doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm hand sanding 8 hours a day, hand sanding. So we spent almost a month hand sanding. We finished the job, it looks good, we're ready to paint. Then some dude walks up, he says, you see that right there? You're gonna have to longboard it, which means you take a longboard and make sure that it's all round and round. Me and Ron got tired, we both got sleepy. That was it the rest of the day. And his whole thing was, at this point, we can just. And the quote that I gave him was, sometimes the shortcut is the long way. Sometimes the shortcut is the long way, because if you say I can just, you can just, but you after you just do that, you're gonna have to do it all over again, because I'm gonna make you do it again. So next time you think to yourself that I can just, be ready to do that and then do it the right way at the end of it anyway. So you might as well save yourself some time and get it done.
All right.
Let's just say something.
Please, come on up.
Yeah, my name is David Robinson. I met Ron several years ago, and my zeal was to be a serious sailor. So Ron, he sort of introduced me to the sailing way amongst a whole lot of other sailors, but Ron was one of the ones that really took a really good interest in me, and I loved his boat, and so I said a lot with Ron. Ron would call me and say, "Dang, I got a boatload full of women, man. You got to come help me." Yeah, that's a lit. I drive up. I drive up to Baltimore. I get to the boat. Ron is down in his rack, sleep, knocked out from the night before, and then the women are coming on the boat. And I'm like, "Ron, what are we gonna do?" "Oh man, don't worry about it. It'll be ready." I said, "Well, Ron, did you check the fuel? Did you check the freon and the coolant?" And yeah, man, don't worry about it. And he go back to sleep. Stuff is everywhere. And then the people are coming. And he gives them a Ron time. He says, noon, and now it's 2. We still haven't shoved off, and he's still down in his rack. And so anyway, I have so many sales with him, with so many like little junctures of stories. They're all funny, but they're chaotic. And so I don't want to say anything negative because they're all good and funny. But on this last trip, he and I love his boat so much that I bought one. He did bless it for me in the sense that, he has a 40, he has an 84 and an 85. I said, "Ron, I just found a 91 that came on the on boat serve, and man, it's beautiful." And I described it to him, and then he said, "Well, send me the listing." So send him the listing. It's the last year they made the boat. It's 1991. And when he went through it, he said, "Man, I love everything about the boat. If I didn't already have 2 of them, I'd buy it." I said, "You sure, man?" He said, yeah, go ahead, man. If you can get it, get it. So I did. And I got it around the same time that he was trying to move his boat. I bought the boat in North Carolina. He had a boat in South Carolina trying to move it to Georgia. He said, "Why don't you come to South Carolina, help me move the boat to Georgia, and then I'll help you move your boat back to Annapolis, where I live." And I said, "Oh man, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do it." Well, at the time, I was sailing with Lamar and Curtis in St. Martin, and we were doing a chartered cruise. And I said, "Man, we'll be back at the end of August. Can you wait that long?" Yeah, no problem. Well, we both get a call. Ron is moving the boat by himself ahead of a hurricane. unprepared, batteries. God knows everything. It had been sitting up for 2 years. So anytime a boat sets up for 2 years, just bad things had happened. So Lamar, Curtis, myself, we all urged Ron to wait until we returned from St. Martin, and we'd help him take the boat down, and then they could help me bring my boat back. Next thing we knew, Ron had grabbed the boat, unhitched and untied the lines and headed down to Georgia, and you know the rest of the story. I'm very sad about that because I was looking forward to helping him. And I got several long texts. You know, he can talk, but he can also text. And I'm reading through the text and I'm, arguing with him. Hey man, don't do that. Don't do that. Just wait. And, he's in a hurry and you can't argue with him. He's got a mind of his own, but he was a good guy. He was a good mentor. I learned a lot of things to do and things not to do about sailing, and they're all good and they're all fine. So anyway, I just feel like I'm the inheritor of the 42 Endeavor. I now have a fully working, fully functional, very nice 1991 Endeavor 42. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Do you have anybody else like to come up and say anything? Okay, so guys, we have a little more time left. We're gonna turn the music on, have a little hangout. Please, if you don't know somebody, please introduce yourself, because that's what my dad wants to do. He would want his people that are here to get to know each other a little bit better. Just get to know anyone. I'll read for me. What? Okay. You want to be good? Okay.
Okay, well, I guess I have a Ron Harris story too. I actually met Ron Harris as part of the METPRO program in about '87. I was graduating from journalism master's degree program, and I went out to LA to try out for the METPRO program. I didn't get it, but I met Ron Harris, who was a character in the newsroom. And so then after that, I kept seeing him at NABJ, National Association of Black Journalism conferences. And then he ended up at Howard University in the journalism department, where I started about 2 years after he started. And from the moment we started talking, we started fighting. So we fought about everything. We fought about HU News Service and whether or not lower level students should be able to publish their work in HU News Service. I said, yes, every student should be able to publish if they're taking a class. He said, no, they have to come up to the standard that I said they have to come up to. And so we went on, we argued on the phone for like a half an hour back and forth. And then was the time we were sending students through the National Newspaper Publishers Association. So they were going throughout the country to work at the Black newspapers. And at a couple of the Black newspapers, they weren't paying the students. So Ron would call the publisher up and curse them out for not paying the students. So by the end of the summer, the students got paid. And then another story was, I think the last time Ron worked at Howard, I hired him because we needed an adjunct to teach a class that suddenly became open. And so I hired him to teach this class, and I hired him in a hurry. So he was delayed in getting paid because he got hired in a hurry. And then he had a clash with another professor teaching in the same classroom. And the other professor was upset about it. He was upset about it. And so they both would call and yell at me. And so the last time, just before he quit, he called up and oh my God, he cursed me out so bad. It was so bad. And I was so mad. I was like, I'm never talking to him again ever in my life.
But you know what? I did. And that's my parents.
Thank you very much. Okay, and, as we wrap up, before we start playing the election, if you want to start up, say anything else? We're gonna go ahead, turn some music on, come on up, please.
Thank you. I'll make this really quick. Since we've heard a lot from people who do run in journalistic circles, and I know most people, I'm Sonia Ross, by the way. Most people will assume I know Ron through Howard. I actually met Ron Harris in the mid-1980s when I was a student at Georgia State University. And I went to a job fair, a minority journalist in the newsroom job fair at Clark Atlanta University, which was Ron's alma mater. Unbeknownst to me and several of my classmates, Ron was a recruiter there, and he wasn't satisfied with the LA Times' approach on recruiting minority students. So this man went to every college in Atlanta, apparently, and rounded up as many journalists and students as he could to come to that job fair. And that's where I met him. I did an interview with him because the table that he was at had a line that looked like boarding call for Noah's Ark. So but he said, stay in touch with me, stay in touch with me. And literally, at every step of my career, I would hear from Ron Harris. One time, I think I was on the White House beat for Associated Press at that time. I got a call from Ron Harris on my cell phone while I was on the campaign trail with Bill Clinton. Like, how did I find you? Or how did you find me? No, don't worry about it. Listen, I need you to do this. And he had students later in my career when I moved over to being an editor. He had students here at Howard who he wanted to interview for the intern program he had. So I said, okay. He sent me one kid. He said, he's very talented. He's real talented. I said, okay, Ron, but you know what? He showed up reeking of weed for his interview. We can't have that. We're going to explain to the Associated Press that I know he reeks of weed from it. He said, what? So he took the kid aside, talked to him, worked on him, and I think I picked up the phone and called Phil Dixon, wherever Phil is, if he's still in the room, and said, listen, we got to do something about the Howard kids. And that's when Ron handed me over to Yannick and Ingrid. And then for a series of years, from 2014 up through 2018, I had interns from Howard every year because of Ron. I just wanted to say, I've heard a lot of people say Ron died doing what he loved, and that's true. But Ron loved life in all actuality. And I often thought throughout his illness that, you know, for Ron Harris to be laid up in a hospital bed or any sick bed with his socks on his feet chilling is not really fair. In a way, because it doesn't exactly reflect his life. And now he went and found an exit that actually reflected his life. So have hope and joy about that, because he put an exclamation mark on his life where there would have probably just been a period or a semicolon. So be encouraged.
Okay, in conclusion, if Lexington, do everybody else would like to come up and speak? Okay, no. Okay, we're gonna do a ceremonious ring of the bell. That for my dad, Uncle Richard asked me to help with this. This is just a ceremonious way to tell my dad goodbye, because I know he's watching us. And, just want to tell you, Dad, we love you, miss you forever, but we got you, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, by the way, if you know, would like to grab something else to eat, please do. We are gonna have, one more ceremony for my father. We're gonna take it back home, back to Memphis, on September 27th. So the people that are online right now, that are at home, we'll see you soon. And if anyone would like to join us, please ask for the details. We'll be sending them out. I'd like to thank everyone again for coming out today. Once again, thank Howard University for extending themselves, and we really appreciate y'all. Thank y'all very much.